What's good, Metaflora family? Welcome to the third episode of Beyond the Haze.
Metaflora Unfiltered presents Beyond the Haze. Welcome to Metaflora Unfiltered. Unfiltered. Trip. Cannabis.
Metaflora unfiltered flow. Canna claws tripped out, let 'em know. Gather chain 3 times, let's go. Get the smoke rolling up, start the show. Metaflora unfiltered flow. Canna claws tripped out, let 'em know.
Welcome to episode 3 of Beyond the Haze. How we doing today, Santa Claus?
Great.
How we doing
Great.
so far?
Spending a lot of
Doing
time
wonderful.
keeping my brother busy the last week or so, and of course we have another some time coming, but it's Christmas Eve, of course, when and his job is over after tonight. So
Yeah.
and then I get to take over again. And I've been working hard with the reindeer, making sure that they're flying well, because that's my job. Is I keep the reindeer flying. We won't give away the secrets of how that happens, of course, but that's been my job for a long time. That little magic reindeer
right.
dust that
That's
they
good to
talk
know.
about in the videos.
There you go.
They brush on.
Yes. The CFO of the North
That's
Pole,
it.
Chief
Yeah,
Flying
we keep
Officer,
everybody
Santa Claus,
airborne.
holding it down.
How's your week? Y'all ready for Christmas and all celebrations and whatever it is you're gonna do?
Trying to get prepared.
Yeah, we spent all day yesterday making Christmas cookies, so everything's
Right
gonna be
on.
ready for you.
We chat quite often, of course, about stuff. And the 1 year when they first legalized in Canada, people left him out cookies that and he didn't realize what he was eating, and he forgot Hawaii. He just finished in
Got a little surprise.
like the end of Canada and thought, okay, I'm done, and went home. He missed everything in the ocean. He was like,
Right.
fuck 'em. Went home. And then Mrs. Claus was like, what are you doing home? It's early. Uh-oh. I gotta go. You have to go back and finish the job. Yeah.
So yeah, you've probably been busy. Any highlights from the past week
I got
on
my
your
head.
end you want to share?
Well, I was subbing in as Santa, of course, because he can't quite be everywhere at once.
Mhm.
So I dress up as him and I play him, and I go out, and I got my head bitten off by a T-Rex. I got shot by a robot
Nice.
with lasers.
Blasted
What's
by
that?
a robot.
Blasted.
I think you got blasted by a robot.
Yeah, he had some laser phasers, smoky thingies, and boom, down I went. And then we had some reindeer, and of course I met an awful lot of children and found out what they wanted for Christmas, as well as seniors and people of all ages and creeds and races and religions. And a lot of people are on this rampage about there being a war on Merry Christmas. That's a load of malarkey. I get people from everywhere. We're in Canada, right? So we have people from pretty much every nation, and pretty
Mhm.
much they all sat on my knee over the
Sure.
past 6 weeks or so. So, and I said Merry Christmas to every single one of them, and they all said it back. And so
Nice.
it is a festive time of year. It's magical. It always is a little bittersweet when it comes to an end. This airs on the 24th, so my last gig will be on the 23rd. And then I'll put the suit on one last time, the red suit on one last time. on Christmas morning.
I saw you also were doing a some sort of a trick. You were smoking out of a gingerbread house.
The roast and
Nice.
toast. They have a Christmas theme of mugs and different things, and they always send me some goodies with the pipe built right into them. So usually it's a coffee.
Yeah.
But
well, that's what we're looking for here, right? I mean, we got the stupid pod tricks competition coming up. We got a lot of big prizes coming in there, more to be added. And I mean, that's kind of what we're looking for, is something as simple as that. Or I mean, it would have been nice if when you were getting eaten by a T-Rex or getting blasted by the robot, you had a joint in your mouth or something. I'd vote for you.
I think that would have qualified.
That would have qualified.
As a submission.
Santa Claus was there, it would have been instead of CO2 coming out of those guns, it would have been, smoke.
Yeah, you could have a joint in one hand, your High Bear water bottle in the other.
Yeah. Mine still isn't here yet.
Speaking of, got mine.
I
got it right here. Mine came this weekend.
Right on.
I got a full day and a half of using it. These things are legit. They are extremely solid. That's the one thing. As soon as you took it out of the box, which first off, I do want to talk about the packaging in the box, because a lot of stuff you buy, it kind of just comes in that basic wrap. You can tell products have put thought into their product when the packaging is impressive and the box is impressive. All the QR codes with everything, the instruction and how to use it, the recipes. So yeah, right out of the bat, it was impressive. But what I used it for this weekend is I drink a ton of water, lemon water. I try to, fruit infused water. So I just packed that middle canister with a bunch of fruit in the beginning of the day and just was refilling and drinking water all day.
Yeah,
it worked out
mine hasn't
awesome.
arrived, and I could have used it over the last few days, because you might be able to tell my voice is a little rougher today than normal, and I would have put
for sure.
some lemon in there, and I probably would have put a big glob of honey in the middle as well, and then just filled it up with, kept refilling it with warm or hot water, because lemon, honey, and warm water really keep your voice conditioned, I guess is the right word. So, but mine's not here yet, probably due to the border issues, or taking a little extra time. But I'm so looking forward to getting mine. I want to have I know I'll be. It'll probably get here between Christmas and New Year's, which is kind of perfect, because it gives me a good opportunity to try some of those infused teas and stuff that I want to do. I don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah,
so I can infuse all I want and just sit on the couch and go, for hours. Yeah. So, what else is going on with you guys? Y'all set?
Yeah. I mean, I'm all set. I'm ready to go.
I'm getting close. It was a busy year all around. So the dad role procrastination got pushed a little closer to Christmas than I would have liked it this year, but I'm pretty darn close. I'm about 95% of the way there.
I'm not really close. I have to go shopping tomorrow on Christmas Eve, because I've been so busy over Christmas. And then Mrs. Claus's birthday is January 2nd, so I don't get much of a reprieve there. But
okay.
Well, everybody dreads the last minute Christmas shopping, but that's what Christmas is all about.
I put my boots on too, and my bells.
You got to do that.
As Santa.
It's an experience
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, not really. I can't on Christmas Eve.
I went yesterday, and it was a madhouse, but it was awesome. There were so many people there. The malls were alive again.
Yeah, you can't find what you want. So now you
got this isn't going to turn into a skating rink. This is going to stay here.
Yeah, right. Damn, they're sold out of those. Or there's one left, and then you're looking over at the lady that's also looking at it, right? Who's faster, me or her?
It's the dash.
Yeah, right.
And then, of course, right afterwards, we have Boxing Day sales here in Canada. And Boxing Day was
what is
like
Boxing Day sale?
Before your Black Friday became a thing here in Canada, which is right around the time the internet really started humming. Boxing Day was our Black Friday. So you would get up at 4 or 5 a.m. on Boxing Day and head to the local electronics or music store or whatever your thing was, and fight people for the 4 TVs that were, $20 instead of $300. And then when they ran out, they ran out.
So was the name Boxing Day relative to the people fighting it out for stuff, or where did the
So it really should be called Reboxing Day. So it's the day after Christmas,
so the returns.
And that's when you take all the gifts that you don't like or don't fit, and you put them back in a box.
Return day
for bringing back to the store for exchanging or whatever. So it's kind of a like the snub day of Christmas. I think it's really only us in England that do it. I don't know if other maybe in Australia, but it's sort of a Commonwealth thing.
It's interesting. Hanukkah's falling on the 25th this year as well.
That's a rarity too, on itself, isn't it?
Yeah, we have on our show today a very special guest. I'm like super, super stoked on. You guys
tell us all about him. I'm excited myself, man. That guy's a bit of a legend.
Yeah, I mean, he's significantly advanced Israel's medical cannabis industry. He's, the first grower over there. He was developing 100% organic treatments. His name's Yohai Gild. He's the founder of Better Pharmaceuticals. And he established the medical marijuana program there, working alongside organizations like MAPS. And he was giving away free medicine for those that need it. And this expertise and the amount of research that he had gone into has influenced laws and studies worldwide. So, yeah, this is going to be an extremely interesting conversation that we're going to have with him. And, without further ado, let's get into it. First, a message from our sponsors, right?
How you doing, Yohai? Pleasure to meet you.
I can't complain. Life seems okay.
I'm going to do some research and development over here. I got these CBD, THC gummies here. They're like 5 milligrams THC and 25 milligrams of CBD. And I'm just kind of testing out some products for the Metaflora marketplace here.
Yeah,
make sure we're not promoting any bunk.
Yeah, you gotta test that stuff out thoroughly,
I agree.
You gotta do what a Shogun did and figure out what the limit is. So you have to take his try to hit right below the limit. And then write about what happens when you over the limit.
Well, that's what we were just talking about. It's like, how do you even do that? There's no
Shogun wrote a whole book about it, but him and Anne used to literally try every experiment. Now, think about the fact that some of the things that they've tried, they've never tried before. Like the first time they tried 2CB or foxymodoxy or all these research chemicals, they had no idea. He's like, well, I developed this. It should go with this. And they had no idea what they were taking, let alone the dosage. And like a DOM, the doses are microdoses. You need like 0.5 milligrams of foxymodoxy. And like, how did he figure that out? I mean, did he take a gram and like run around naked for a week? But it's crazy because Shogun and Sasha and Anne developed thousands of different research chemicals from the original MDMA all the way to his latest. 2CB was one of his greatest, but to get there, they had to test thousands and thousands of combinations. And in his book Pickle, he talks about taking this with this, 5 milligrams of this with 10 milligrams of that. I mean, how did he figure out that 2CB is best to take with LSD and MDMA? They had to take it without, more or less. Man, and he lived to 96. You know, it's not like he died young.
Yeah,
no.
right. What a mentality, though. It's just that's a whole different mindset of being like you said. I'm going to be my own test dummy on something that's possibly just going to blow my mind. I don't even know what I'm about to experience.
Yeah, I have a friend, Kirsha Kikli. She's now living in Tasmania, married to this eccentric billionaire. They own their own island, but Kirsha, I met her in LA through Woody Harrelson and the Janes crew. And her dad is John Kickley. And John Kickley was the guy that Albert Hoffman went to the morning after he took the first hit of acid ever by mistake and said, now we need to try this together. And the first time was a spill on himself. And the second time, they each took a dose, which they believed was one dose, which was an equivalent of around 500 hits of LSD, 400 milligram hits of LSD. So it's more like, 2,000 hits of modern day acid. And John Kickley was the second guy with him, and he quit, left his job at the Swiss drug company, moved to California, bought the house from the guy that wrote Dr. Seuss, and moved up to Topanga Canyon and retired. That's what happened to him after, okay, life.
Wow.
But he was the second person ever to take LSD, and they had no idea. Like I spilled this on me, I tripped out, and the next day we need to take this together. It was wonderful, and and then dosing and not knowing what you're dosing, and they dosed it. He was working on this on a drug made out of ergot that they were making other drugs for putting you to sleep before operations. And so that was the amount. So when they calculated the amount of LSD to take, they were calculating as in how much ergot or other derived drugs you need to put a person to sleep. They had no idea that micrograms of the stuff does the job. But John Kickley, I ended up doing naked yoga on the roof at Dr. D's house in Topanga Canyon for many summers. And this was this was in 98, 99, but this property in Topanga Canyon that they bought was just a haven of bliss. And it came out from these big heads, and now Kirsha's my generation and, retired with a billionaire in Australia. But it's you can see the wealth of reconstructive psychedelic humility that came out of that. These people really changed their life, left the pharmaceutical industry, left corporate, moved to California. There they, met all the rest of the merry pranksters and McKenna and all these people that kind of left society because this drug woke them up. And really, you have to think before this, you can take for granted all these hippies that took it in the 70s and 80s, but those original, Ram Dass was a Harvard professor that, left Harvard and wrote a book, Be Here Now, and became a monk, Ram Dass, and then McKenna and all these group of people, they really left society for a while. And they were the birth of these hippie 60s and 70s, but they were the first ones to give up on society and kind of reclaim this kind of chill, recreative movement that eventually became the weed movement, the psychedelic movement, the music movement, Grateful Dead, Fish, they evolved, but they started with these guys that literally did it for the first time and had no idea what they were stepping into, the looking glass, the rabbit hole that they went through, first time.
Man.
Unreal.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, but we're not talking about cannabis, sorry.
I mean, it's all a part of the journey,
Well, yeah. I mean, you just touched upon so many cultural things that basically that experience and that kind of endeavor just completely influenced. And this is my first time hearing a lot of this. So it's not so many people I don't think realize that. That's beyond interesting.
Yeah, well, it's an evolution. I mean, I was 15 when I hit my first hit of LSD. Some cute girl said, "Let's eat acid." I had no idea what it was, and wow, did I I was expecting weed or hash, but but I wasn't discovering something from the new time. When I hit my first hit of MDMA, someone told me you're going to hug for an hour. And I told me everything's going to melt. These guys had no idea what was going to happen.
Right.
They had
Yeah.
no pretense. They had no guide. And, when they're out of their mind, they had no one to come tell them it's going to end. It's going to be okay, of anything. And it's like, and yet they were all very much intellectuals. These weren't some party animal druggies. These were all professors and doctors, on the highest level. I mean, Rick Doblin, the founder of MAPS and Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, they helped me get my first cannabis license. It was the first non-federal organization cannabis license by a federal government, which allowed us to do our research in Israel outside of NIDR, the National Institute for Drug Abuse, PPP from Canada, or GW in England. This was, in 2004, 5 when it was all new. But Rick Doblin, he was one of those Harvard students in the 70s and 80s that Hoffman and all these people came and he interacted with them. And he showed me these writings where, as a student, he was transcribing and translating papers that Stanislav Grof was trying to document. And Stanislav Grof was taken out by the CIA, brought in from the Czech Republic to America in the 60s. And in the 60s, his job was to do MK Ultra, the giving soldiers in the US Army LSD to see how the Army interacts with it. Is this a weapon? Can it be weaponized? And all the research. And Rick Doblin gave me this one paper, one of many, that he translated. And it was an ESP experiment where Stanislav Grof and 3 other Harvard-type professors all ate a lot of LSD in the purpose of finding out if they can be telekinetic on LSD. And they're writing, it's a journal, and I have it, I'll send it to you so you could read it. It's wonderful, but
Cool.
They're sitting there, 4 doctors, transcribing everything, and with a person writing it down, and then they wrote them like, I am sure I can move the glass. I feel it. Yes, it's going to move. And they're like perfectly convinced that they can do ESP, but they cannot, of course. But this is a Harvard science experiment,
Yeah.
like by professors, not hippies or druggies, by PhD people with LSD brought in from Switzerland by the CIA. And they're doing this in the 60s. And you read it and it's mind-blowing, the stuff that they did, and the world we
It
live in.
is.
Yeah, they were just as interested as anybody else who takes it.
Yeah, and I think, there's
curious.
some good research came out of it. They found, there's a couple really good things before. That's how MAPS started its MDMA research, when LSD and MDMA were all legal back in the 60s. And LSD became illegal at first, and that's when Stanislav Grof started his holotropic breathwork to reach that same level of psychedelic awareness without taking psychedelics, because he thought it was important. So he invented this school of thought in psychology called holotropic breathwork and transpersonal psychology, which, over the years, over the last 40 years, is taught in universities. And he became the expert of that. Sadly, Stanislav Grof now, I just talked to him last week, but he's suffering from Alzheimer's, and he's losing it slowly but surely. It's not very, 10 years ago when we hung out, he was amazing. But, he got old. He's in his 90s now. But he invented all of it, all his holotropic breathwork, in order to continue his research without having access to LSD, because LSD research was stopping and becoming illegal. And that was the reason Rick Doblin started MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. He started it because MDMA was becoming illegal. They used illegal experiments at NIDA, faked crystal meth and ice research to illegalize MDMA. MDMA is not harmful, and that's the reason that they become FDA-approved clinical studies, because it does not give you side effects. But they used crystal meth and its side effect to say, this is what MDMA does. And when they were starting to make it illegal, Rick started at Harvard doing all the nonprofit work to do clinical studies, to have access to MDMA for clinical studies, because he felt like he was going to lose that. And MDMA is an amazing medical tool. Forget about parties, but 65% of people that go through MDMA psychotherapy or MDMA assisted psychotherapy get a cure for post-traumatic stress disorder. You're talking about women that were beaten and raped, soldiers that come back from the war. More soldiers die coming back from the war than in the war. 15 to 17 soldiers every day commit suicide. Every day commit suicide coming back from the war, coming back from Iran, Afghanistan, and for post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's not a joke. You're talking about more after they come home than in the battlefield. And MDMA cures it. It's not a treatment you have to take your whole life. It's 2 sessions on psychotherapy, on MDMA with psychotherapy, and it cures it. It stops it, because what PTSD is, it's your frontal lobes reenacting the same chemical structure as you had in your brain when you went through the event. So you're going through an accident, even if it's not war. And right when you have that accident, you feel the terror, the fear, the anxiety, the adrenaline of that accident, or the gunshot, or the beating. And your frontal lobe puts out serotonin, melatonin, endorphins, and all these things in a certain construct. Then years down the road, weeks down the road, something happens. It triggers a memory of the same incident, and your frontal lobe produces the same neurochemicals identical that appeared during the incident. And you actually feel the same feeling, the same anxiety, the same exact mental state and chemical state of your brain as you felt when the incident happened. And then you have that fear, as in someone just shot you, or you just out of the accident, or you just got raped. And what MDMA assisted psychotherapy does is it floods your brain with MDMA, which is a lot of serotonin, this lovey-dovey love experience, while you're speaking to a psychotherapist about the event. And your brain is like stamping the original stamp of neurochemicals, but it's not working because it's flooded with MDMA. And you're literally reprogramming your brain to feel the lovey-dovey when you think of those memories. And after 2 sessions, speaking specifically about an event that usually makes these people go crazy, they no longer feel crazy. Your brain no longer produces these fear, adrenaline, anxiety neurochemicals. They produce more of a MDMA construct. And literally, now you go through life and something happens that would bring up that memory, and the memory no longer terrifies you. And for women that have been raped, for women that have been beaten, for soldiers after the war, it's amazing. And you're talking about breakthrough designation from the FDA. That means over 75% of patients going through it are cured, not treatment for the rest of their life, a cure, which does not happen in psychology. And so, there's a lot of interesting things out there. I mean, they use cannabis for PTSD, and it does work. I used it after my bombing, and cannabis helped me a lot to relax. It helped the anxiety a lot. But it's not till I went through MDMA psychotherapy that I stopped fainting from blood, that I started seeing blood in movies, that I really was cured from my PTSD and was able to sleep. Cannabis helped. It helped me sleep. It helped me go through life. But it wasn't a cure, it was a treatment. And it wasn't 100% treatment, where MDMA was. There was a guy that wanted to make a movie about PTSD and cannabis, and I said, why did you make a movie about MAPS? And he actually ended up making a movie about MAPS. I was an idiot. I should have had a documentary made about me, but I was being selfless, more about PTSD than about myself. He made a good documentary, actually. A great movie they made about MAPS, but you have a lot of treatments, and with cannabis, there's a difference, but you definitely have some very good treatments, not cures, but some very good treatments. And if the amount of money and science that corporations put into clinical studies with other chemicals, if that amount of money was put into cannabis, you'd have the same cures. If some company, there were billions spent on AIDS, billions spent on cancer, and that research cost and is intensive. it's not done with cannabis because there's no patent with cannabis. So if a company now goes and invests $100 million or $1 billion on a drug, the drug is no longer, it's not 18 years. When they developed Viagra, you had 18 years of that patent, and then another 5-6 years till someone developed their own copy of that patent. And of course, you have non-patent drugs like Better Pharmaceuticals produces, it's the largest generic company in the world, and they produce generic drugs. They wait till your patent runs out, and then they copy it patent-free and do their own studies to do it. But with cannabis, like we discovered that there are some strains of cannabis that actually fight cancer. We're not talking about palliative care. We're not talking about feeling better and feeling stronger so you can fight the cancer, which is true, by the way. You eat, you have more energy because of the cannabis, you eat better, and then you have more energy to fight the cancer. So yes, it helps you beat cancer, but it's not killing the cancer. But then we started researching it. The Technion, Dr. Dedi Meiri, that's probably one of the best scientists in the world doing this, in the Israeli Haifa Technion, he's a cancer researcher. He had millions of dollars of grants to do research on cancer, not cannabis. And we talked, and he started getting interested in cannabis. This is around 10 years ago. And so we told him, listen, we believe this kills cancer. And he's like, yeah, whatever. Everybody tells me that. And then he just said, okay, let's test it. So he took around 20 of my strains, and he took 20 strains from another cannabis company, and he put it into this atomic microscope where you have around 80 petri dishes with cancer, and each one is injected with a different chemical or substance, and then it takes pictures of the cancer cells every 2 seconds in an atomic level of all the petri dishes, and you can watch the substance attack the cancer. Now, the cancer is in human cells, and when he tells you about this, he tells you about our goal is to find a substance that kills the cancer before it kills all the human cells. And you have substances that kill cancer, but they also kill the human cells, like radiation, chemo, and all these different things. You have hundreds of different types of treatments, from not only like chemicals, but you have chemicals and it's endless. But the problem is, this radiation kills 80% of the cancer, but 100% of the human cells. Mm-hmm. And so it's a race, and that's what radiation does. It kills you off. It kills your metabolism, your system, and the cells. And at first, he didn't get a lot of results. And then he found one strain that sadly wasn't even my strain. It was a strain of hemp from the Czech Republic. I won't tell you the name, but a public strain of a company that has no idea what they have. And this one strain doesn't even have any THC in it. It has a lot of CBG in it and some other stuff. Industrial hemp. You're not even talking about CBD, cannabis hemp. We're talking about fabric hemp. And this one strain was killing sarcoma, brain cancer. And surprisingly enough, he said it killed 100% of the brain cancer cells and did not harm any human cells. And he's never seen that. He's never seen something attack the cancer and leave the human cells alone. So then he was blown away. He took all his stuff, went and got a new grant, and then started testing thousands of strains from thousands of companies all the way around the world. And all the companies in the world, this is 8-9 years ago, sent him free samples because he would give you a complete cannabinoid breakdown. Now, not a lot of companies can give you that. Every cannabinoid, you need a test for it. And most companies have THC, CBD, CBN, CBG, and they have like 6, 7, or 8 cannabinoids, 25 terpenoids, 35 flavonoids, and some other stuff they can test. But each new cannabinoid has a different test. That's why people don't discover new cannabinoids, because to discover a new cannabinoid, you need to test for it. You need to know what to look for. And each test is different. And most labs that test for cannabinoids don't have more than 6 or 7 different main that they test for. Where Dedi had all 132 cannabinoids listed, and he would test for all of them. So he can give you a complete map of everything in your spectrum of your cannabis, and that was valuable. So a lot of companies sent as many samples as possible to understand what they have. And I was searching for new cannabinoids. I wanted to name a cannabinoid. I didn't find one, by the way. But we found that a certain type of CBG affects brain cancer. So we took that and we started a clinical study in Australia, where first it was in petri dishes, in vivo it's called, and the plan was to go in vitro in mice to radiate. Then we needed to radiate the cannabis while we were growing it, and then give the irradiated cannabis to mice so you could follow the pictures under on an MRI machine to be able to follow the cannabis as it goes into the mouse, as it goes to the cell. So does the mouse smoke it? Does he eat it? Does he get it injected? And how does the irradiated cannabinoids reach a cancer cell? And that's what we need to find out. We need to find the delivery system. I mean, are you going to be injecting this cannabis oil directly into the brain cancer? Or are you going to be smoking it or putting it on your skin? We had to research it. We never got there because my company stopped its research before this happened, and I ended up in prison when someone tried to steal the company. But the research was real. We saw cannabis, specific strains of cannabis, kill cancer. And the surprising thing was when Dedi Meiri tried to duplicate the strain, because we only had a little bit of it, he had the breakdown of the strain, and he went and built the same exact cannabinoid build of the strain using 5 or 6 other cannabis plants. The same THC, CBD, CBN, CBG, all of it. And he constructed it out of several types of oil, and he made a mirror copy of it, and the copy did not work. The copy didn't do anything. It was like as if it was benign. So then he went a step further, and he took the same flowers that we gave him, and he extracted it differently. Instead of ethanol extractions, which we did, he used CO2 extractions. And with CO2 extraction, it separates the cannabinoids. And they separated these cannabinoids, and he put them back together with the CO2 extractions, and the CO2 oil did not work. So apparently the entourage effect that Meshulam was talking about for cannabinoids to affect the body properly and to ignite the CB1 and CB2 receptor in the brain, that entourage effect is very important and is strain specific, where one strain of cannabis with a specific formulation of entourages of CBD and THC, cannabinoids, flavonoids, terpenoids, and so on and so forth, that exact combination is unique and only affects specific ailments. And it's not the CBD or the THC, it's all of it as a whole plant, which modern medicine doesn't agree with. In modern medicine, for you to do FDA trials, you can't have a complex molecule. You can't have an entourage of molecules. You have to have a single molecule extracted and then given to the patient. So in modern medicine, you can't extract that one molecule and give it because it won't work with cannabis. Hence, more issues with making cannabis into a prescription FDA medicine. But yeah, interesting stuff that we got to do in Israel, having federal licenses. Now everyone's doing research. Now everyone's allowed to do research. Still in the US, it's very much blocked because you need GMP cannabis to have FDA-approved clinical studies. And there is no GMP cannabis. The only GMP cannabis available in America is still made by NIDA, the National Institute for Drug Abuse. They still have a federal monopoly. Till this day, MAPS has tried to break the federal monopoly. Sue Sicily in Arizona was doing, got FDA approval, but she had to use NIDA cannabis, which is bad cannabis, swag. So in America, it's still very much blocked on the federal level. But you have Canada, and you have Israel, and you have now in Europe and Germany, a lot more GMP cannabis available. You can't import it into the US, but you can import it around the world now and export it around the world. So you have that research more now. But 15 years ago, there was no one doing any of this research. We were the first ones in Israel. And that was MAPS's goal in sending me and helping me get that first license in Israel. And me leaving California in 2006-07 to do it because we wanted to do medical research. And that medical research worked. We saw the epilepsy and the autism and cancer and Crohn's disease and endless ailments we documented, and the Canadian government used it for its regulations, and the German government used it for its regulations, the Czech Republic, I mean, pictures of me with the Czech president and Australian prime minister, and all these countries sent over their ministers to Israel to learn and to then use our research to help regulate that globally, which
That's
is
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
Which is the point of medical cannabis in California and Arizona, all over America. The state said, listen, the federal government is blocking research, it's blocking development, and we know it helps, so we're going to pass a law called medical cannabis, allowing patients to access a medicine without federal regulations, without FDA approval. So where there's medical cannabis, you do not need FDA approval to give a substance to a person. So if I'm in Thailand or in Germany, I can give a patient or a kid with epilepsy or autism medical cannabis without FDA approval. But if I'm in France or in Germany, sorry, not Germany anymore, Germany legalized, France or Italy or Spain, for me to give that epileptic kid cannabis, I need to either give a GW's Sativex approved by the FDA, or I cannot. And I cannot even do the research. I can't physically give it to the kid. When the Israeli government allowed us to do this research, they gave us license to do it. They were the first that allowed us to do it in the world, and that's why MAPS and all of us put the energy in Israel in 2006. And now, of course, every place is developing it. Every place is allowing it. Australia, hell, Malaysia, Thailand. There's many, many places allowing that research to happen. But it's still, nobody wants to invest $100 million on cannabis that can't be patented. So I go and I put $100 million to proving that cannabis stops your nose from shrinking. Whatever reason it is, it doesn't matter what the medical ailment is. And I clinically prove the cannabis stops your nose from shrinking. And then I go and I do my research. And then tomorrow morning, Joe comes from wherever and says, oh, I'm using a different strain of cannabis to stop nose shrinkage. And I will do my research. And I have no way to uphold that pattern because he's using different cannabinoids, different flavonoids, a different strain. He may not even smoke it. He may vaporize it or eat it or inject it or what have you. And then there's no patent. So I just lost $100 million proving my nose shrinking, and he just copies me. And that's a problem because you can't patent cannabis.
My goodness.
Hello, Santa Claus.
The Grinch was playing with my connectivity over here. I don't know what was going on, but it wasn't letting me jump in. So I'm here. Sorry to be late.
Welcome. I don't believe in Santa Claus. I'm a Jew, but I love cannabis, so I'll do it in for the week.
Well, you got to believe in Santa Claus then.
Yeah, my kids celebrate Christmas, so might as well.
Of course, I do play Santa Claus during the season, and I am amazed every time people from all different cultures come and sit on the knee of Santa Claus. I'm in Canada, of course, so we have people from everywhere, and everybody comes. Doesn't matter where they're from. There's a few people, but they don't necessarily celebrate Christmas, but they like celebrating Santa. Oh, it's good. It's good. How are you? Pleasure to meet you.
I understand that one.
I'm Yohai. Hello.
I'm Santa Claus, also known as Clark Bitter, and it's a great pleasure.
Hello, Clark.
So catch me up.
So
Where were we?
We were talking about research with cannabis on the FDA level on different matters, and we're talking about patents and proprietary technologies surrounding that and that problem with cannabis. So let's take an example: Rick Doblin's MAPS MDMA research. So the FDA offers a 6-year pattern for substance redesignation. So MDMA was invented over 100 years ago, and there's no patent on it. You can't patent it. But here you go, you do FDA clinical studies for 18 years and prove MDMA is good for psychotherapy and for PTSD. So the FDA, when the third stage clinical studies are done, the FDA will issue a 6-year patent instead of an 18-year patent, which is not 18 years. And an additional 2 years if they do child safety, another stage of stage 4 clinical studies for children's safety and efficacy. So then they have that 6 year plus 2 years, 8 years. And after that 8 years, the treatment of using MDMA for psychotherapy becomes public. So for 8 years, MAPS has exclusivity to manufacture MDMA on Earth legally and sell it as a drug. After that 8 years is over, other pharmaceutical companies can then enter the market. They still have to do clinical studies. That means they still take a year, 2, 3 years to copy MAPS's protocol, do their own study with MDMA, and put out their own drug with MDMA. And so probably after 8, 9, 10 years, your patent's gone. It's not 18 years, but it's half as good. So you can do that with cannabis. It's being done now with ketamine. Ketamine is a drug that's owned by many companies, and it's a proper drug. Pfizer invented it, but Merck has a copy of Ketaset, and Johnson & Johnson have Ketarec. Johnson & Johnson went and read all this research that ketamine helps depression. And so Johnson & Johnson went and did a huge clinical studies proving that it works. They got breakthrough designation in 2020 that taking ketamine intravenously twice a week with a doctor can cure and stop aggressive depression that does not have treatment. And this is very much depressed, suicidal people. They did the drug. They got breakthrough designation, as in 65 to 70% of the patients were getting positive results. And they patented the drug and they put it out. And because they own ketamine, they still have 5 years left on their normal patent with ketamine. And now they have 8 years for their repurposing. So in reality, they have around 8.5 years. But all the other isomers owned by Pfizer and Merck can do their own. So Pfizer and Merck will have their own treatments on their own isomers, their own version of ketamine, which is different from the original ketamine. But it's a legal drug, so it was much easier for them to do it. And it's now, you can go into any doctor in Australia and Europe and get that treatment for depression. But the patent is shorter. So yes, if I now figure out that cannabis cures brain cancer, and it's strain specific. If I do the FDA studies with the specific strain that kills sarcoma, then I will get my 6 years, and I will do the children, and I will get my 8 years patent. But there's nothing that can extend me beyond that 8 years. Any other company can go look at my strain and try to find strains that look like it. And they will find one. They will grow thousands of strains from around the world, look for the cannabinoid breakdown and entourage mirror of that strain, copy it, try to find one that works, and after 8 years, do their own FDA study, and then come out with their own treatment for cannabis, for that specific cancer. Now, don't forget, there's thousands of types of cancers, and the difference between brain cancer and blood cancer and skin cancer are as different than the flu and the cold and a broken leg. So there's not going to be one cure for cancer. It's impossible, because leukemia is a blood pathogen, and brain cancer is a thing that grows in your brain. They are both cold cancer because the cells don't baptize. They don't die when they're sick. The mechanism of committing suicide when they're ill does not work. So they call it cancer. But the treatment for one type of cancer and another are completely different. So then You have a specific strain, like the one we found with CBG that helps brain cancer. That specific strain only affected brain cancer in the Technion's research. He injected it into hundreds of different types of cancers, and he injected hundreds of different strains into those petri dishes, and he found one strain that killed one type of brain cancer, one type of cancer, and it was unique. And that one strain didn't do nothing to other cancers, and the other strains did nothing to the brain cancer. So finding it is as unique as doing it, and these experiments cost a lot of money, but going from the petri dish to, and it's called in vivo, and then go in vitro, which is in mice and monkeys, and then succeeding in mice to still kill that cancer in a certain way, and then you have to figure out how. Is it smoking, eating, injecting, so on and so forth. Then you go into humans, and you have to have the efficacy that it still works in humans. And then once it works in humans, you have to figure out the right treatment. And you're talking, stage one of in vivo, in vitro, you're talking $10 million. Stage two, in vitro, in vivo, you're talking around $50 million. And stage three, you're talking 200. So you have a quarter of $1 billion to get there. And don't forget, 9 out of 10 treatments in FDA fail. Any treatments, whether it's cancer, whatever it is. And this is normal. This isn't cannabis. This is pharmaceutical FDA studies. So, if to get to stage 3 cost around $250 million properly and fast, you're talking about, $3 billion worth of research being done for every drug. Now, MAPS did it nonprofit. They raised $25 million and did it with a lot of doctors in Israel, in England, in Australia, in Europe, and in Harvard, and they had all these volunteers. So they were able to do all 3 stages for very cheap, for $25 million as a nonprofit. But 5 months ago, the FDA, they finished with breakthrough results, and the FDA clinical board decided to go haywire and call MAPS a bunch of hippies and bad doctors from Harvard that like psychedelics and want to corrupt the world. And the FDA medical board did not approve the study. They said, you failed. Even though you had a breakthrough designation and everything was good, they still went no. So now they have to start over. They have to raise another 25, probably more, because doing it the hippie way didn't work. And now they're going to have to raise $50 million to redo all the clinical studies. They know it's going to work. They have the results, but now they have to do it again. And now they're attempting to do it as a pharmaceutical company, not as a nonprofit. So the road is not 100% paved. And
can they not submit that to another board for approval? For example, to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency?
Yeah. So the Canadians adhere to America. Yeah. So Health Canada adheres to FDA, and Australia, IDC approves to American FDA. The American FDA review board is the highest.
I understand that. We have several drugs in Canada that are not approved by the FDA, and vice versa. So.
And so they did, Rick Doblin did work with Health Canada to do part of the therapies and the FDA clinical studies in Canada. But no, they cannot circumvent the FDA. They cannot go to another country and circumvent it, because the FDA's rules in all its territories and all its sister, brother, EMA in Europe, and so on. And so what Rick has to do now is raise $100 million, but they're doing it through a pharma company, and to redo it. There's no way around it. It sucks. It completely sucks, but and actually it caused a lot of problems with MAPS. They opened up a pharmaceutical company that was supposed to monetize and distribute MDMA, and that pharmaceutical company had investors, and they've gone AWOL, and they've now raised more money, diluted MAPS, and MAPS as a nonprofit lost control over the pharmaceutical company, and Rick Doblin and MAPS lost their lifelong work with all their research, and now the pharmaceutical company is raising money in a pharmaceutical sense to put out MDMA as a drug. and they're dropping apparently the therapy. They're trying to go as in, here's ecstasy, it's good for PTSD, take it, good luck, and not have the psychotherapy assisted. Now, it works without the psychotherapy assisted, but a lot less. It still works good enough for pharma drugs, 20, 30, 40%, but not the 75. Rick is having a really rough time with all of this. It's all new. It's all happened in the last, 6, 7 months. I was in prison until 3 months ago. I don't know if you know my story, but I was the first legal grower in Israel, the first one to get a federal license out of the monopolies. In 2006, Perry Plant System had a federal monopoly in Canada. NIDA had a federal monopoly in Israel, and GW had a federal monopoly in England. And there was no more research being done in the world, all being blocked by FDAs and governments. And we, through MAPS, got the first federal license without a monopoly in Israel. I moved from California to Israel to grow, and we started the first research for medicine on cannabis back then. We had to give it away for free from 2007 to 2019. No money allowed in. In 2012, they allowed us to take $80 a month per patient as a fee. And so it doesn't matter if an epilepsy or cancer patient was getting 30, 40 grams of Rick Simpson oil, that would cost us $1,000 to make, they were still paying $80, and they needed that much, around 2.5 grams a day of whole plant organic oil per epileptic and autistic child. And that's every day forever. It doesn't stop. So we were a nonprofit for a long time. And then in 2019, they legalized the sale of cannabis. And we were supposed to go public, and bankers and Wall Street people are bigger gangsters than we dope sellers in California. And they tried to do a hostile takeover of my company. They invested $30 million into my company. And before I got home, cops were at my house and they arrested me. 56% owner of a $150 million company arrested me for so-called selling a single gram of meth. They planted a single gram of meth in my house in Thailand and a 0.5 gram of MDMA, which both carried 4-year sentences, and locked me up. Went to the Israeli government and said he can't own a pharmaceutical company in Israel. He's a drug dealer, and got me liquidated and stole my company. It took me around 3.5 years to get out of prison. I wrote 8 books in prison. I had a rough time at first, but my last year was wonderful. I let go. I found myself in there. I really found a good, happy place in prison behind them bars. I was kind of reborn back there and got out. And I've been out for 3 months. I met Greg right when I got out, and starting over, not from nothing, because I no longer have to wait 10 years to give away free medicine to get a license to grow federally. The world's changed thanks to my own work and other people that I've worked with. And so now I'm starting over. But I got to see the how corporatizing and big cannabis and Wall Street and bankers robbed us, because they really did. The everyday growers, the people that started this movement, lost it to the bankers. It's now big tobacco, big alcohol, big pharma. They own everything. My IPO was killed in Australia by a rate A bank. I had a bank, I had everything ready, and 15 minutes before we went public, my chairman and bank quit on me and joined Kronos, which is owned by Marlboro. And so it was literally, big tobacco, big alcohol, big pharma have taken over cannabis, and they don't care about quality. They don't care about patients. They really don't care about anything. They look at it as in medical cannabis is a step in the pathway to recreational, and they don't care about healing. They care about that recreational market. Look at Thailand. Thailand medical started, and they rushed too quick to recreational, and there's no one doing medical cannabis in Thailand. Not one medical company. They're all doing recreational because you got this multi-billion-dollar recreational market, and no one gives a shit about helping. And recreational is good. Don't take me wrong. Smoking weed should be legal. It's great. It's not harmful. But the medical benefits of cannabis are very important. They're important to everything from epilepsy to autism that has no other treatment, and you have Crohn's, you have many types of cancers, you have endless amounts of medical benefit that needs to be concentrated on. And these big companies, they don't really care about it. You don't hear about the medical innovations and the medical clinical studies being done in Canada. You hear about the recreational strains. You hear about the recreational market. And medical cannabis has been sidelined and forgotten. And it's what started all this. It's what started California. It's what started Canada. It's what started
I was going to
a
say
lot
that
of this
too.
movement.
California has kind of done the same exact thing. You don't really see the medical aspect of cannabis anymore in California. And I think when we look at other states in the United States, that whole medical culture and scene is not prevalent anymore. All we see now is trying to get the most potent thing on the shelf, or like a race to the top to see how high of a THC product we can create in our breeding rooms and things like this. Meanwhile, there's all this need for the research, for the epilepsy, for the cancers, for the multiple sclerosis, the autism, the AIDS, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And what is that all about? They want to bury the people that are already in this industry, to just say, hey, you guys go recreational. Don't even worry about, contributing to this cause, because the pharmaceutical industry is going to be taking off in the next probably 10 years from now, after they do go into the laboratories and they do find out all these studies and they do come out with something on top. You're saying that it's costing, $500 million to get yourself from point A to point B through all the different tiers of the studies to go through. And at that point, you're looking at having proprietary strains that maybe you can hold on to for 8 years. My question would be still, like, even if you had all that information, are you even able to crossbreed to get the same exact strain, the same exact phenotype?
And even then, even if you can't, how do you recapture that $250 million? And that's the key, because there's going to be another strain that's very close to it. That's not
overcharging people.
Right.
Just like they recapture all the drugs. I mean,
It's not
the
gonna
drugs
work
that are being sold in
It's not
America.
going to work with cannabis when I can grow it in my backyard. And that's why you're not seeing the big pharmaceutical companies invest in the research. They'll come, they'll look, they'll find people like you, and they'll take your research because you've done the heavy lifting. Then what they can do is they can build on that at a far less cost if they want to, but they're not looking for a strain. They're looking for something they can isolate out or that they can reconstruct. So they want to take distillates and botanical terpenes and all the different cannabinoids that you can get and see how they work. They want the pharmaceuticals. Now I have a very, very, very close relative who does this for a living, Harvard educated and the whole thing. But he's told me the biggest problem is they can't make any money off of it. The big pharmaceutical companies, unless they isolate a single thing, because that's the way they do things, they'll say, let's say CBG works on glioblastoma. But once they isolate CBG, they're not going to get a patent on it because it's so widely available, right?
Nor will CBG work on glioblastoma once you isolate it, because that CBG, when it's in the entourage whole plant oil, does do that, but the minute you isolate it, it stops. Like, look, you have GW Pharmaceuticals, okay? GW is originally owned by Monsanto. Monsanto got bought out by Pfizer, so it's now a Pfizer subsidiary, one of the big five. GW Pharmaceuticals has 2 drugs, FDA approved, Sativex and Epidiolex. Epidiolex is for epilepsy, and Sativex is just THC in a bottle. So you have CBD high and THC high. You look at their clinical studies, and they have a 38% efficacy. And then you look at the study I did in Israel, an open bottle study with a whole plant CBD strain that I did for epilepsy, and we had a 61%. That's almost
It's
double the
absolute
efficacy
proof of the
on
entourage
children.
effect as well, right?
Yeah,
Which we all know
and but
from using vapes in
exactly.
particular.
But I didn't have $100 million, and realistically, I cannot get a whole plant registered. I cannot
Right.
register a complex configuring of cannabinoids. So GW is doing its thing, and GW is making money. Don't
Sure
get
they
me
are.
wrong. GW is a multi-billion-dollar company,
The
and
epilepsy one
they
is the number
do their
one
thing by
prescribed cannabis pharmaceutical in the United Kingdom.
yeah. But don't forget, the United Kingdom have a
It's the only
monopoly.
way these children can
In the
get their
United
medication
Kingdom,
is through that particular one.
yeah,
They can't take straight RSO, CBD
they can't.
RSO, or
They're not
CBG
allowed.
RSO. It's not legal. Just like
Even though it's more
right,
helpful.
even though it has,
Even though it's more
like
helpful to
Charlotte's
take
Web
whole
was the
plant.
original one that the world really saw was Charlotte Figgy. When the world saw her react, that was a full spectrum oil that was administered sublingually with a syringe, and it stopped her epilepsy attacks instantaneously. The pharmaceutical companies,
It stopped 40% of her attacks, but it still stopped that 40%. She was never actually 100% free, but that 40% was a big change of life for her, because it was from 10 to 15 attacks a day to 1 or 2 a day, which allowed her to regain consciousness. But yes, if she was given Epidiolex, it wouldn't have worked at all.
Well, Billy Caldwell, he's now seizure free. Isn't that correct, Clark?
yeah, Billy Caldwell's
Yeah,
seizure free. My understanding when I spoke
that's what I
to
recently
Charlotte's
read.
family, she was seizure free for the final years before she caught COVID. And that was with full spectrum. But the government, of course, and the pharmaceutical companies, they prefer you to have something with a DIN number in Canada. They want you to have a DIN so that it's always exactly the same. It's this, that's the other thing. And they don't understand this herbal side of things, right? Because of the way they do business. The more studies that come out, the better they get at it. But their doctors, their own profession doesn't even teach the endocannabinoid system at medical school. So there's a lot of hurdles that we have to get past as advocates in order to get this accepted. And I think one of the biggest ones is actually getting the doctors to understand how intricate the endocannabinoid system is with all the other systems in our bodies, and how it regulates things like our nervous system, like our digestive system, like even how our brains fire neurons at each other. They have no problem prescribing or giving somebody Tylenol that works in the same way that CBD does.
And kills 5% of the people that take it, right?
At the same time, because there's so many. They've always tried to figure out, why does Tylenol attack the liver? But they didn't understand that the liver has the highest concentration of cannabinoid receptors outside of the brain. And that's because the liver is a regulating organ. It regulates it. It works together with all your other internal organs, except for your heart and lungs. But even in some cases, if your liver's not working, your heart and lungs are going to give you a hard time. But that's all regulated by cannabinoids, right?
And you have human beings in the last 150 years are suffering from a cannabinoid deficiency.
Absolutely.
Where 100 years ago, you had it in your food, you had it in your medicine, hell, you had it burning in your house for light.
Yeah.
You had it seeping into your clothes through the hemp. And they didn't have hemp without THC. It was all the same cannabis. You know? Add it to your pigs, add it to your food. There was hemp, there was flour and bread and clothes and oils and food and seeds and lights in your house and oil and medicine,
It was
and
the
you
first
ate
plant
it.
we ever
So you
cultivated
had
because of
a
all the
common,
uses. Human beings never cultivated cannabis before we.
yeah. I mean, you look at exactly. You look at the American government used to have farmers plant 20% of all their farms hemp for the government as a tax. You grew 20% hemp for the
It
government,
was
and
the
that's how
original
you
way you
paid
paid your
tax.
taxes.
But
You
the
had to
fact,
grow. George
yeah,
Washington grew hemp, for crying out loud.
George Washington, every farmer had to grow 20% hemp as tax for the government because they used it as the army. But the fact is that we're going through a withdrawal, a deficiency. Human beings used to intake it, and then you see epilepsy and autism and cancer rising over the last 100 years, all these ailments rising, not because they're new, because the body that used to intake cannabinoids regularly has stopped. And human beings are suffering from a collective deficiency of cannabinoids. And it's not to smoke weed, it used to be in everything. And it's illegal. It became illegal because they wanted to bring in cotton and get rid of hemp, and for both oils and fabrics. But the fact is, you're right. The intake, it's so complex. The CB1 and CB2 receptors interact with so many of the human system that regulates everything. And that deficiency is making us overall sick.
I post about cannabinoid deficiency syndrome quite a bit. They pretty much have concluded that almost everybody that suffers from regular migraine headaches suffers from CDS. Same with fibromyalgia, which we see widespread now because so many people have no cannabinoids in their system. And the other side of it is because we weren't exposed to it for generations, when we do find people that take in a tremendous amount of cannabinoids, people that medicate with it, there's a buildup. So we need that tolerance break. And a lot of us can't take it. Someone like myself who has spinal issues, I may have to suffer for 3 or 4 days with a bad back in order to get greater effects from the cannabis. So instead, I just use more now.
Or you switch the strains. You try to switch as much as strains.
Well, we do that all the time. Yeah, we're always constantly switching strains out, but you still get the cannabinoid plaque, for lack of a better word, on your receptors. So you need to find there's got to be something, and I haven't come across it yet, but there's got to be something other than a tolerance break that can knock those things off my receptors.
Have you heard? I've only heard of it. I've read about it, but I've not seen it because it's new since I've gotten out of prison. But they're using CBD and cannabinoids intravenously.
No, I haven't looked into that yet.
So now there's a company. I don't even have I can tell you the name. Will take me a second. But there's a company that says that all across the U.S. and Canada already, and they have a product. That's what the product is. They're doing FDA work. They're doing their studies, and they're all about intravenous, getting it like you get it right to the vein with a bag. Cannabinoids, which, like I said, for me is completely
new. It's going to have instantaneous
and I've not seen
effects
it
with some of them, but others are still going to have to process through the liver, or they are going to process through the liver and cause something 20 minutes, an hour later. I imagine the effects would be very similar to what we've experienced with sublingual, because that goes directly into those two main veins under your blood vessels under your tongue. So it gets the product directly into your tongue. Of course, there's going to be some modification with the saliva in the mouth. It's going to have some effect on it, but it's interesting. I'm going to dig deeper into that for sure. So what are you working on now? Now that you're out, and congratulations on that, by the way. I imagine you've got something in store for us soon.
Well, I've spent most of my time with my children from the second I've been out. I'm with them nonstop, and while they're in school, I work on editing my books. I wrote 2 books about my life, and I wrote 5 fiction books about other lives. So now my days are being spent editing my books and spending time with my kids. I've started a biofuels project with Greg, because Greg was in Romania where I'm at, and that's where I'm based right now because my kids are there. So I'm working on some biofuel projects, a lot of industrial hemp biomass turned into biofuels. So we have some ideas going there. And I have a couple ideas that I put out together while I was doing my research for some medical devices. And I've been consulting 4 or 5 different companies. And I hope over the next year I settle with some good partners and put my system back into play. The research we did was great, but one of the things that I learned is, like you said, you have to have that DSN number for medical cannabis, not for recreational. And so what I was able to concentrate in my 15 years of growing in Israel was to be able to create an industrial application for growing, an industrial size production where we grew 5 tons a year, still keeping that indoor California homegrown quality, the proper taste of proper organic, doing it completely organic, of course, keeping the price low and having that be the same every time. And my system in Israel was able to do that. We were able to get a lot of clinical studies because of that standardization of cannabis and the ability to industrially grow it with keeping the quality. And so that's one of the skills that I think big cannabis that is ruled by big tobacco, alcohol, and pharma haven't been able to do. They haven't been able to grow large amounts of cannabis while still keeping that quality. In Canada, you see the smaller growers still sell for $15, $16, $20 a gram, and big cannabis selling for $8 to $11, not because they can't get the high prices, because their quality is just no good. It's that mid-grade, industrially produced, full of chemicals taste. So knowing that I have that system and that ability.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Canadian market.
Please do.
So when we first started here in Canada, our courts were the ones who mandated it. It started out with one person and then a group of people, and it kept getting to a larger amount of people, and different regulations were put into place. And about 15 years ago or so, the government was forced to allow people to grow it, but they also had to create a supply of it for those that didn't want to grow it, a licensed, tested, distributed supply. And they, of course, gave most of the licenses to corporate people. So that was the birth of companies such as Canopy Growth, Aurora Cannabis, Tilray. These are some of the biggest names in the business worldwide now.
Isn't Tilray and Aurora, didn't they combine?
They may have at one
different
point. Organigram is another massive one. Now, Organigram is a little different than the others. Those 3 companies in particular, Tilray was probably the best of them as far as quality went.
They did it right in the beginning too.
They tried. They didn't get it quite right.
They
didn't get it quite right.
But out of all the corporations, I think they
were the only ones that actually
the best
had a
idea.
cannabis background. So when Canopy opened, it was the guy that opened it used to be the president of the Liberal Party of Canada. The Conservatives gave him the first license. Before they ever cracked a seed, he was out of it, had profited $200 million, and sold a ton of stock.
Yeah, the first cannabis millionaire.
They produced cannabis in a facility that used regular drywall and wooden studs. So in a very short period of time, they had mold and mildew issues because they didn't do any water treatment.
And recalls after recalls after recalls.
Well, they irradiated it. So it passed all the government tests and all the laboratory tests because the irradiation killed off the live spores. So the live spores wouldn't test positive. But my wife has a brain tumor and got one of the early prescriptions, and this stuff arrived at my house, and you could not consume it. It was the worst cannabis I'd ever seen in my life. If I'd have grown it, it would have gone in the garbage before ever harvesting it. Today, 15 years later and 6 years after legalization. Now, these big companies, by the way, there were a few smaller ones that the legacy growers went in. Broken Coast was one. Whistler Cannabis was another. These are all BC cannabis companies, right?
Yeah, the Whistler Organics was they started out
They were
really good.
phenomenal.
I met with them.
So where we are today, I can go to a legal dispensary in my town of 95,000 people. There's, mind you, we're a tourist city. I'm in Niagara Falls. So there's probably 15 of them here, 15 stores, almost the same number as there are coffee shops. Too bad the cannabis shops and coffee shops weren't one. We could have cannabis
United.
shops, but one day we will. I can go in and I can get an ounce of really, really good cannabis that we would have considered good cannabis. I just bought an ounce of Venom OG, 30% THC, 2%, 2.5% CBD, 3.8% terps. All the terps are listed, everything else. I paid $128 for an ounce of what would have been in the black market days considered 4A. The most expensive stuff on the market right now is overpriced. And it doesn't move. And it's no better than the other stuff. In some cases, it's not even as good. But the highest price I've seen on the market right now, even if you're buying in the 3.5 range, is roughly $45, and very, very few are in that range. Most, if
So $12 a gram.
but there might be two brands doing that. The other 450 brands are down around the $5 to at the most $7 range, and the retail market. Now, in the medical market, in some cases it's a little bit more because they include shipping, which means they just build it into the price. And in others, they give a great discount to the medical people, as much as 40-50% off. But the medical numbers are dropping. The number of people that have gotten prescriptions have dropped significantly since the recreational market came out. Our medical market is still taxed. So if I buy a gram, for every gram that's sold, they have to give $1 to the federal government, medical or not. And I still pay a sales tax on top of that. It's the only prescription in Canada that you pay a sales tax on is cannabis. And we've tried, and their answer is always, it is not a regulated Health Canada product. And Health Canada will
you don't have
never
FDA
regulate
approval.
it because of everything that you're saying, because they would have to regulate each and every strain and then each and every phenotype of each and every cultivar. And nobody's going to do that. The other option is that they could classify cannabis the same way they classify ginkgo biloba or St. John's wort or ginseng or any of these other herbal supplements, because that is exactly what it is. It's a supplement that we need. Our body requires cannabinoids. Otherwise, we end up with a cannabinoid deficiency syndrome. I consider it a vitamin. That's the way I look at it. And that's eventually the perspective I'm hoping the rest of the world figures out, that this is no different than vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C. You need it to function properly, and we need to get it back into our food chain.
You can't even access good medical cannabis in Thailand. If I'm a patient autistic or epileptic or cancer, I can only get weed, unregulated weed, because there's no regulation in Thailand. The recreational market does not allow for concentrates. The medical market does, but there is no medical market, so you cannot find cannabis oil for your patient. I had a friend call me up, said my mom's just got sick, and what do I need? I told him you need whole plant high CBD oil, full spectrum, alcohol extracted, not CO2. He had no place to find that in Thailand, and because of that neglect, everyone's about the recreational, and sadly, it's continuing more and more down that road in countries such as Germany and Thailand and Canada and even Colorado, where it's legal, in California. The medical industry surrounding cannabis has been dropped. It's no longer a need, and so the need is not being filled.
Yeah, I would add too that even outside of those areas of the states, like I knew the situation that was happening in Florida. The mother had, I believe it was cervical cancer, and they were looking for something else. They were trying everything under the doctor's roof. Nothing was working for them, and they were even trying out full spectrum oil, but it was based off of the CBD plants. And then somehow they got a hold of somebody in California. They got Rick Simpson oil over there. I believe it was a type of Kush cross, and she ended up taking a full regimen of this. And she showed up to her chemo appointment. They ran a couple tests on her, and they sent her home. She didn't have to go through her chemo at that point, and they wanted to monitor her going forward. And they said, "Well, what happened? This is this shouldn't be going on like this." And she said exactly what she did, and she was taking something else for a long length of time, and he said that this had to have been the only thing that was going to keep you away from these other type of movements going forward.
Yeah. Well, we know it works, and it's a reason it's legal everywhere. It's that proof that we did in Israel, the proof they did in Colorado. Like you said, Charlotte Web was a very, very, when they went on CNN, it was a very, very big deal. And then with Sue Sicily in Arizona, when she went on CNN next, those two people being on I forget the guy's name on CNN, Gupta. The doctor, but Sanjay Gupta, when the Charlotte Web and then Sue Sicily did the Sanjay Gupta episodes, it really helped break through the norm, because it changed the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And with Israel doing the research and showing it to Canada and showing it to Germany and showing it to the Czech Republic and Thailand and Australia, really helped. And the problem is that the recreational aspects of Colorado came in and showed people money. And that, if Colorado's making $1 billion, we want to make $1 billion. And that recreational spread in very much so killed a lot of the medical work and ability. And even if you want to do it, it's tough. You can't get the licenses. There's nobody growing medical cannabis in California anymore. Everyone's doing recreational. It's put a hindrance on the whole market globally, and you see it true in Australia. You see it true in Germany. You see it true in Israel. Even Israel's a medical cannabis place. There's no recreational. But all the cannabis companies in Israel now have stopped doing research. They're all about get the highest THC, get the highest thing, get ready for recreational market. The drive of the Israeli companies is no longer a medical and research drive. It's that let's get the highest THC and the best thing and get ready for the global export market, because that's where they see their money. That's where they see their work. Some want to be the KFC and McDonald's. Some want to be the boutique high quality, but that's where it's at. And it's just really sad because people really need it, and they need to understand that they need it. Some people don't even understand it anymore. They no longer have doctors pushing it and advocates pushing it, and they don't have that movement, that grassroots medical movement that we had in Canada and in California 10, 20 years ago. I forgot the name guy that owns a dispensary that went to prison. I met him a couple of times with Spearhead in BC.
Mark Emery.
He had a club. Yeah, Mark
That's
Emery. Yeah, so like Mark Emery went to jail for this, and,
Steve.
and Todd McCormick went to jail for this,
Dana Larson.
and yeah, and these people, I went to prison for it in a different way, but we all pushed the medicine aspect of it, the medical cannabis aspect of it, and there was advocacy, and there was a movement, a grassroots movement across the U.S. and Canada to push those regulations, to push SB 420 and Prop 215, to push the rules and regulations to free cannabis. And that movement doesn't exist anymore because everybody's on the high stream of recreational. Everybody is pushed by the almighty dollar, not by the almighty snake around the stick.
Yeah, it's an interesting industry in that way, in that from the production side of things, there's really no difference between medical cannabis and recreational cannabis. Cannabis is cannabis. What you do with it after harvest, and perhaps which cultivars you grow, can be influenced whether your aim is recreational or medical. But the user, even going to the dispensary, to the recreational dispensary here, that's not allowed to tell you one word about medical because they have no knowledge. That's why they don't allow the dispensary to tell you anything, because they have no official knowledge. They also don't allow your doctors to tell you anything because they also have no official knowledge.
No one's allowed to tell you anything. Go on the internet. Good luck.
With the internet, find beyond the haze, you'll find some information. I still see the people that are using it are seeking out, how is this going to help me? What can I do with cannabis to alleviate my alcoholism, for example? Or does it work on anxiety? But they're not going to their doctor or whatever. They are buying at the recreational dispensary because, believe it or not, in a lot of cases, product availability and price are better at the dispensary than they are through the medical dispensaries online, particularly for CBD oils. And
quality.
And quality is the same as the medical ones online, because in Canada it's all the same.
You think all the same. You think the big cannabis companies that produce by the ton are reaching the same quality
in the
as the
oils?
smaller?
Yes. In the oils. And our oils are not. When I say oils, they're suspensions. So you're talking MCT oil with CBD or THC or both, and CBN and some, and CBG and some, but it's a suspension rather than a concentrate.
So concentrates.
The concentrates are sold,
which makes sense,
as recreational products, live rosins and dabs and stuff. But the educated medical consumer still uses those for their edibles or for whatnot, right? But they tend to use, like, the elderly. For example, it's very hard to find a senior citizen that doesn't take a CBD suspension oil. Most of them are not taking enough because the dosages really do have to be quite high. And
they're taking 5%. They have a bottle with 1 gram of CBD in it, and they take that bottle over 5 days, where they should be taking a bottle for breakfast and a bottle for dinner.
We're up to the highest concentrated one I've found so far is 200 milligrams per milliliter. And you'll get 30 milliliters in that bottle. So 6,000 milligrams in a 30 milliliter bottle, which is a decent amount. That's the one we give my mother-in-law.
You have 6 grams.
We give her about 250 milligrams a day, just as a sustainer.
That's what it should be with epileptic kids. They should be getting roughly 6 grams in each bottle and a bottle lasts for 3
Right.
days. But that's, once again, that's very thick oil in that bottle. That's not the nice glossy dropper that you
Yeah.
usually get
Whereas
in stores.
ours are nice, glassy. It looks like it's a darker oil, of course, because it has such higher
Yeah,
concentration.
and thick because
It's still a
it's oil.
suspension.
Yeah.
It's still MCT, I believe, in this one. But we have them with avocado oil. We have them with all kinds. Now, there is another fellow on here that was showing. We have a couple of science guys on X that your oil can make a difference as to the bioavailability of the cannabinoid that it is suspended in. So apparently, sesame oil can as much as double the bioavailability of the cannabinoids that are suspended in it versus MCT oil or olive.
Yeah, olive oil. Olive oil is very good, but it soaks in a certain amount. It's the same thing with the skin.
Yeah.
When you put it on your skin for people with different, whether it's skin cancer or psoriasis or eczema, putting it in olive oil gives a much different bioavailability than if you put
And
it
it's great
in
that people are looking
rapeseed
this
oil
stuff up,
or
right?
what
Because
have
who
you.
would think, well, let's put it in sesame oil and see what it's like. Let's put it in this oil and see how it. So it's great that those researchers are happening that kind of independently by the small niche researchers, I guess. It's kind of it's going to be interesting to see the future of the research side of it, like you say. Now that it's the focus on the corporate side is recreational. The demand is still
Well,
there
I've
though
been
for the
like,
medical because all of us are getting older, and all of us. One of the things I like to say is when I was younger, I tried to smoke weed that put me in a wheelchair. Now I try to consume cannabis that keeps me out.
it'll
Yeah.
take me out.
So our
Well,
needs from the plant change over time. But whether we're using it recreationally or whether we're using it medically, we're still getting the medical benefits from it. So there's that positive side from the recreational. There's still, if you consume cannabis on a regular basis, you're not going to have that cannabinoid deficiency syndrome, perhaps. If you're going to stick to THC all the time, you're just going to get a THC buildup on your stuff and need to have that may cause its own minor issues here and there. But we're seeing reductions in alcohol consumption, for example, in places where it's legalized, and we're seeing increases in alcohol consumption where it's not, where it's still stigmatized. UK, someone just posted today, they had 8,200 deaths from alcohol last year, just not even in the United Kingdom, just in England. That doesn't include Scotland and Wales or Northern Ireland. In Canada, in my province, we have it's gone down to below 3,000 fentanyl deaths a year. We're up at about 6,300 alcohol deaths a year. Cannabis still hasn't killed anybody. Prohibition.
not yet, but we're working on it.
Yeah,
We're working on it. We're going to get that THC high enough, I'm telling you.
Oh, man.
But I know, a good friend of mine, may he rest in peace, Larry Hagman, had to go through a liver transplant, and because he was an alcoholic, he couldn't get on the transplant list. But he was lucky enough to have fans, and a fan from Texas gave him a liver, and he went through his liver transplant and changed his vice from alcohol, whiskey, to OG Kush. And I mean, he actually, would buy my Burning Man ticket just so I would pay him in Kush. I don't want money. Bring me that ounce for Burning Man. But he attributed cannabis to saving his life because he needed that vice. He needed his own vice, and his vice was whiskey. And he traded whiskey for cannabis, and he enjoyed it. He rolled his big fat joints, he smoked, he socialized, and he needed that social vice. And cannabis was the vice that saved. I mean, He did die around 10 years later, but he said that it gave him that extra
Is
long
that what
time.
JR stood for?
And
Joint roller? Joint
yeah,
roller
J.R.
Ewing.
Ewing, joint roller Ewing. I have to.
You guys are like, what are they
I have to
talking
send
about?
you some.
Dallas, cool
Yeah, I
TV
have some.
show back in the 80s. It used to be Who Shot JR? He was the actor.
Who
Larry
shot JR?
Hagman was the actor that played JR. Now that I
Yeah.
know he's Cannabis, joint roller Ewing. That's it. From now on. That's
Yeah, I have a picture of him at Burning Man on my pirate ship in 2005, and he gives you this JR look, and I'm like, who shot JR up with all the THC?
it's a great story.
But it helped him. It helped him get
Helped
off
me
of
get off of
alcohol.
alcohol
And
24, almost 23 and a half years ago. Without cannabis,
yeah,
I wouldn't be alive today. I was at a stage in my life where I drank. I didn't drink every day, but when I drank, I didn't understand what social drinking was. I still kind of don't understand how people can go out and have one or two drinks. Like, what's the point, right? Like, I don't get it. That's could be a mental block in my head, but I still don't understand it. Either drink or don't, right? I'm kind of a 100% or 0% kind of guy. So the last night I drank, it kind of went overboard, and I ended up in being arrested under the Mental Health Act, and being kicked out of my home, and being put in family isolation, we'll call it, for 10 days or so. And ended up being my wife, had changed the locks and everything, and I went and spent a week at my father's, who was in Vegas, and I sat on the end of a bed, puking into a bucket for a week, deciding whether I was going to continue drinking and move in behind a shopping mall on Yonge Street in Toronto, or I was going to quit drinking and try to remain a productive member of society and a father and a boyfriend and a son and all of those things. Looking back, the thing that surprises me the most is it took me a week to figure out which of those two was the better option.
At what point did you move to the North Pole?
I did that a long time afterwards. Yeah. Now, I continued to consume cannabis during this period, and the doctors that I went to and all of the counselors and therapists that I went to told me that I needed to quit it. I needed to be completely sober. But here's a little pill that you can take that'll break your habits. It's called Wellbutrin. And there's only a 4 or 5% chance that you're going to stick a pistol in your mouth and blow your brains out if you take this. I said, excuse me? I said, well, there's a percentage of people that commit suicide from when they take this pill. And I said, so I already have a history of trying to commit suicide as a teenager. You're going to give me a pill that has a side effect of committing suicide and telling me to stop taking the cannabis that actually fills my alcohol cravings, doesn't make me want to kill anything, including myself, except maybe a box of Pringles. I'd kill that. Or a bag of Doritos.
Yeah.
But
Heck yeah.
I looked at my doctor and I said, I'm sorry, man. I know that this isn't the right answer or the thing you want to hear, but I'm not taking a little pill to get over another poison. Like, why would I take one poison to get over another poison? I'm going to go with the herbal stuff that makes me feel better, and we'll see where that ends up. Right? And now 23 and a half years later, I don't do drugs. I don't do alcohol. I'm a stable, retired man in my 50s. And it changed my life. If I hadn't had cannabis, I don't know if I'd still be here. My wife has a brain tumor called a meningioma, and she uses cannabis to treat it. Doesn't take the opioids. It's inoperable. She doesn't grow anymore. or if it does, it's extremely slow. They can't even detect the growth. But she's gone through 2 full cycles of RSO, 2 90-day gram a day cycles. And on the second one, we haven't seen much, if any, growth at all in the last, say, 5 years. And
I would just keep doing it every day for the rest of your life. Don't have to do the cycles.
It still has effects on her that it has some effects on her digestive system that she's not fond of having every day. So she goes through little cycles on it. The type of growth that she has is a little bit different, but she has neuropathy now. She's going to have an operation. She's got some ulnar nerve damage, but it's such a long period between diagnosis and operation that she's going to start consuming THC-AT, so non-decarboxylated cannabis made into a tea with some coconut oil in there and heavy milk to absorb the THC-A, because THC-A's been proven to be a neuroregenerator. It can do as opposed to THC. So non-decarboning.
Yeah, Dr. Ashcraft at UCLA 25 years
showed
ago.
That, yeah. So
great research.
I found out about that when I had a misdiagnosis of MS about 7 or 8 years ago. An emergency doctor who didn't know what she was talking about saw a CT scan and said I had lesions on the brain. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not MS. Guaranteed it's MS. You can't diagnose MS with a CT. You need an MRI. So either way, there was quite a bit of concussion damage, and I went to my cannabis doctor at the cannabis clinics here in St. Catharines, which is a non-fee doctor. It's all covered by OHIP. They give you your prescriptions. They usually don't give any more than 5 or 6 grams a day. And what he said to me was, look, he told me all about THCA, gave me the recipe for making the tea that we still have to put up there to for the bottles, for the high bear bottles, because I think it's going to make really good product in that thing. There it is.
Sure will.
And a diffusing bottle in there for making teas. So, and you can shake it as well. So I think we have to use both of those attachments in there to really get the medicine incorporated into the tea. But if you take a gram of high potency THC, so say 25% and up, and you let it soak in a tea and boil it for about 3 minutes on your stove with a tea bag, some milk. Use whole milk if you can, not raw milk, but whole milk, and drink one of those a day. I did that it took about 5 months, I think, before I got in to see the MS specialist and had a second MRI. And they found that I had no concussion damage anymore. When they compared it to the original MRI, the doctor wanted to make sure that it was my MRI. She said, this doesn't make any sense. There's the old one over there shows damage, and this one shows no damage. What have you been doing? So I told her about.
That's right.
You told her the damage came from her, not you.
The damage came from football and hockey. As a young kid, believe me, I didn't care. I'd ram my head into anything. I'm Irish by descent. We use our forehead for everything. Like a Calabrese. But the relief came from the THC, and I've noticed I think clearer since taking that for 6 months. I don't, I may have suffered from CTE a little because I'd had so many concussions, but I don't, it changes your neural pathways, I think, in much as it heals the brain in much the same way that mushrooms and perhaps MDMA change those neural pathways and our ways of thinking. And I think that is a key to changing our behavior, right?
Yeah. Well, when you have a combination of neurogenesis, which is creating new neural pathways, which was believed to be unheard of. Brain only dissolves them, doesn't create them as they grow. But when you have neurogenesis, and then you have habitual practice a new practice where you're waking up and you're consciously healing yourself. Forget about even what you're healing with. You're constantly making a choice to heal your body. You're making a tea. You're not just taking the tincture, but you're making the tea. So you're in the process of creating a device that heals yourself. So you're creating new path and behavioral patterns. And the creation of new neural pathways and new behavioral pathways recreate new genes in your brain that work. It's like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about in his book, The Placebo Effect. You're consciously healing and you're constantly changing who you are. And you're physically creating new neural pathways, creating new behavioral pathways and new genes that create new electrons in your brain based off of new behavior, new decisions, new choices, and then you're assisted with a product, THCA, that creates new neurogenesis, new neuro connectivity in your brain. So you're actually helping your normal behavioral pattern creation with the THC together, and so you're creating that healing advice. I mean, you can do it without cannabis. You can actively work on healing yourself and doing things that are healthy. And yeah, and it's not just the positive thinking, because when you do that, you're changing your behavior. You're changing what you do. You're changing your habits of your life, and you're changing what you do. And and it's like another book by the same doctor, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. You're creating a new you, a new positive you with the thinking. And now you're adding a miracle drug that creates neurogenesis while you're creating a healing thought process of healing yourself. So you have the drug and your habits together creating a new you. And that's important because you need to be able to see the pathway to health. You need to be able to envision the pathway to health. You need to be determined on that pathway to health to create health. If you tell someone they're dying of cancer, they're dying of cancer. If they believe that, and if that's how they wake up in the morning, is I am dying of something, whether you're supposed to die of it or not, your brain and your body now create that. Yeah. Create your reality no matter what you think. And this is not foo-foo, fa-fa spiritual stuff. It's manifestation. You think of something in your life, it happens. You think you're going to be tired and you're going to be sick. You're going to be tired and you're sick. You think, I'm going to take this and this is going to make me better. It's going to make you better. Even if it's a placebo effect and that 25% of the people are taking placebo, it still helps them. And so now you're not really taking a placebo, you're taking real THCA that really helps you. And that combination, the making of the tea.
During our journey, one time a doctor told my wife that there are very few conditions, somewhere in the 5 to 6% range of all known human conditions, that are not positively affected by the power of positive thinking. That if you think this is not going to work, it probably isn't going to work. But if you think this is going to work, it probably is going to work to some degree. So how we look at and approach things makes a huge difference on our own personal outcomes, just as you were saying. So, gentlemen, I got a feeling that we could probably talk here for another 7 or 8 hours. I don't have a lot of time for that today, unfortunately. I have Santa Claus duties to take care of today. It's only a few days before. I have to go read.
I'll get your information and send you some of the package on the IV information about the cannabis.
Absolutely.
With IV.
We'll do that when we're off camera. So that
sounds good. Yeah, Yohai, you can send me over whatever. I can also invite you into maybe a group chat if you want to continue the conversation and stuff like this. And yeah, we'd love to have you on again.
Gotta have you on again. You have to see where you are.
Yeah. Well, I'm here now that I'm free. It'll be really fun to talk about other subjects, talk about my book, talk about future projects, talk about my kids.
Are any of your books available to the public yet?
Not yet. They're all right now. I'm still in the transcribing them. They were all handwritten, snuck out on notes in the pants of
Gotcha.
captains, and I've now been able to scan all the notes, and I'm transcribing everything. It's a
Sure.
process. I have a couple really good authors. A doctor in San Francisco, some good people through Maps that are helping me with the editing. But hopefully soon
Right.
enough, Greg will help me get some of the stuff out and get some editing help. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm here, so I'm not going anywhere. Not for a long time.
Excellent. Excellent.
Awesome.
Good to hear.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on the show, brother.
Man, that was an amazing interview, huh? Yohai is absolutely fascinating.
Totally.
Yeah,
And
to
everything
say
he's
the
gone
least.
through in order to further all of this is it's incredible. It's maddening almost.
Yeah, you can hear it when he's talking. He's not going to stop
Not a
the
chance.
mission that he's always been on, and this is just a rebirth into it. And
Yeah.
we're going to see a lot of big things coming out of this guy over the next few years here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we kept going
Just
for
really
days
ramping
with
up
him, so
what's going on
I'm
in the
glad that
industry.
we will get another chance to have him back and get some updates on where he's gotten since this interview, because I can't wait to see where he goes, because it's going to be interesting at the very least.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100% he'll be back.
And of course, we have New Year's Eve coming up next week.
Yeah,
Yep.
this is going to be amazing.
Yeah,
It's going to be a
it
great
will
show.
Be a great show for we're going to do a little post interview.
It's going to be nice.
With my brother. Post trip interview.
Yes,
And,
yes.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that.
I think this will be the first ever interview post Christmas for Santa, getting to know what he was doing on his trip. How did it go? Were there any kind of encounters?
Man, like I'm telling you, like nobody ever finds out.
I want to know who had the best cookies.
Yeah, he's got some great cookie stories.
Like country-wise, who delivers the best?
Exactly. Remind me when the interview's on to ask him about his first trip through Canada on when they legalized, because they legalized in October and everybody was all excited about it, and he didn't know too much about it. He was busy preparing for Christmas, and I'll let him tell you the rest of it. But you remind me to, if I don't bring it up, you remind me to tell him.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, so the New Year's show, it's music based, right?
New Year's, got a party on New Year's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to put together a little kind of New Year's playlist. That'll be its own little separate thing for everyone to kind of check out. We also have conversations with Crypto Lion from the Gallo music community, Ali M, and Louis King as well. So I'm excited for that. We should have just a music-filled episode, hopefully starting off with a epic interview of Santa Claus and Santa Claus, the first ever. So I'm excited for every part of the New Year's episode.
And we're going to start kicking off our giveaways as well, too. Start off the year right. And yeah, so stay tuned for the New Year's show. We got a lot to give away. We got a lot to put together here for you guys with pot tricks as well. This new year is going to
vote so that we can get get one of the stupid pot tricks up there. I don't know. I want to see somebody with a water cooler over their head at some point. That better happen. We need some power assisted smoking. Yeah, like I couldn't dig up the video, but I one time used my the little vacuum thing that you use to inflate your floaty for your pool. So I stuck my chillum in the one end of it, filled it full of hash, and lit it, turned it on, and I think I smoked a gram of hash in about 12 seconds. So, yeah, and that's people do these kinds of things, and we want to see it. We want to see what you're doing. We want to see how you're having fun with it, how you're entertaining others. It's all over the place on social media, so we'd like to gather some of that in, and it's not just for fun either. There's going to be some great prizes at the end of it, and we're going to try to keep it going every year, and someone will win the whole year the whole first season prize as well. So get your submissions in every week. Think about it. Come up with something neat, and take your pot for a walk.
Right on. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what you guys got. Until next time, everybody.
Merry
This is Beyond the
Christmas.
Haze.
Ho, ho, ho.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Peace.
See you on New Year's.